Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth. This program features in-depth conversations with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile Here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
Hello and welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth. And I always love that last part of Race Hobbs' monologue, that I am not just your host, but I am your intrepid host. Yes, it's true. Meanwhile Here on Earth broadcasts, of course, on KGRA, where you are watching or listening right now, very possibly, unless you're listening on Spreaker.com. If you subscribe to KGRA, you don't just subscribe to me, you subscribe to everybody and every program ever done since KGRA began broadcasting back in the 16th century. That's zillions of shows. And again, if you use my name as your code when you subscribe, you will receive a full 30% discount. You heard that correctly, 30%. The business part of the show is now concluded. At the age of 4, my guest, Cheryl Carter, had her first paranormal experience while visiting her aunt's farm. Soon she realized she had a unique sixth sense and was able to interact with those on the other side. This had a profound effect on instilling a sense of purpose in her life. Throughout the years, she has maintained a vision of pursuing several avenues as a writer, photographer, researcher, and I would add published author, and explorer in order to share their stories with the world. Cheryl's travels have taken her down the path of the unknown, where many are just waiting to be heard and longing to be remembered. She has investigated structures with subtle undertones and artistic renderings that beg to be understood. Through writing and photos, she expresses their message for all to hear. As an explorer of ufology, Cheryl is a member of MUFON and CE5. She serves as a consultant for Thomas Cromwell's book, They Are Here, Central US UFOs. Cheryl is a freelance journalist writing for Paranormal Underground magazine and Body Spirit Guide. In addition, she is an author of several books, including Dimensions, Mysterious Triangles of the U.S., and co-author of Digging into Skinwalker Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch and the Basin Files. Cheryl Carter, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth.
Great to be here.
It's great to have you. Let's get right into things. You and I had what I thought was a really fascinating conversation leading up to the show. I try to speak to all my guests beforehand. And let's begin at the beginning here. Where were you born?
LaSalle, Illinois.
Any
little Midwest town.
Is LaSalle a farming town, or more mercantile kind of village, or a small city?
It was a small town. It was industrial. There were like farms on the outskirts. It's probably an hour and a half from Chicago. It's not that small, but.
Any siblings?
Yes, there are 6 of us, and I'm the oldest.
You are the oldest of 7.
I was the practice child. How that goes.
I think they got it right. All your siblings must be pretty good based on that. Was your dad? Your dad, I'm guessing, was working, obviously, but was your mom working too, or she? I mean, with 7 kids.
No. My father was a factory worker. My mother stayed home.
I guess. That's 7 jobs, actually, that she had to his 1.
Exactly.
Did you grow up on a farm or?
No, we were city. We were city. Now my aunt had a farm, and that's where I had my first paranormal experience when I went to visit her one time.
Was she also in state or good clip away from you guys?
Pardon me?
Was she also live in state nearby you guys, or?
Yeah, she was probably half hour away.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm always curious with people, as regular listeners and viewers know. Reading for me is impossible to think of my life without, as is the world of films. We all master reading at different ages in our life for different reasons. About when did you get to the point where you could read what we'll call a grown-up book?
I just remember Grandma used to read me books all the time.
And
I thought it was so cool. Like, I want to learn how to read.
What a beautiful example.
When we first started reading in school, and it was like, see Anne, see the dog, and I'm going, this isn't how I want to read, I wanted to read really a real book. I don't know, a few years later, but
right.
I was very disappointed that first reading class, though.
See Jane run.
Yeah. I go, what is this?
We all have to start somewhere. Did your grandma read to you any particular types of books, or, an assortment of children's books, fairy tales, legends, myths?
Different children's books, fairy tales, yes. I loved all that. It was like a lot of imagine, make-believe stuff, which has always been, I've always been curious about the unknown and stuff.
Yeah, I'm obviously going to get to that really soon.
Yeah.
Same question for the world of movies. Did you kind of enter that world with the family going out to the local theater, or later in life going with your friends, or watching television and seeing movies on television?
Watching television. My father would watch all this really cool stuff on TV.
Yeah. It was, again, one thing that stuck in my mind from our call. Your dad sounds like he was really quite a guy, and wonderfully open-minded, and a real explorer of the unknown himself in a very real way. You had your first paranormal experience on your aunt's farm. Can you tell us something about that?
Yes, I went with my grandma. We went to visit her, and I was probably about 5 years old, and I was upstairs sleeping. Everybody else was downstairs. And so, little kids want to go snoop around. So there was a room next to us that had all kinds of trunks and boxes. I wanted to go snoop in there. So I opened up one trunk. It was full of clothes. That's not exciting. And I looked behind this other one, and there was a little boy standing there. And he was about the same age as I was. And I go, why is there a little boy up here? There's no little boys here. And then I realized I could see through him. And then I got a little bit closer, and he tried to reach out and touch me, and his hand was really cold. And I ran down those stairs, and I never told anybody about that little boy up there.
Wow. As you reflected back on him, which you must have done in the days and weeks that followed, we're extraordinarily accepting when we are kids. Nobody's told us, usually what we can and can't have experienced. Mm-hmm. Although if you were to have told your grandmother or your parents, it's not out of the question that you would have gotten, a nice, well-meaning response of, you just thought you saw that little boy dear, because he couldn't have been there because we don't have a little boy stuck up in the attic. Is it something that just sort of you integrated into your thinking, and everything is everything, and I'm playing with my friends, and I'm reading, and hanging out with my siblings, and there's this experience that I had? Or did it stay in kind of a separate compartment in a way?
After that, then I guess that must have opened up my abilities or something, because then I started seeing things a lot. And I didn't realize at the time that my grandma was also had this ability to see and know things.
Oh.
She didn't talk about it, but then I started realizing that she would know something was going to happen before it happened. And the funny part was we'd go walking down the street, and this is so funny. Just thought about it the other day. We're walking down the street, and there was this couple that lived on the one side, and the man came outside, and he's waving to us, and we waved back. And all of a sudden, I got this weird thought, and I said, Grandma, if he's married, how come he's kissing the lady across the street?
Oh, awkward moment.
I was starting to know things I shouldn't know.
Did that ever go anywhere? Or your grandma simply acknowledged it, but probably did not confront him or the lady across the street?
Just goes, shh. Like I was right, you know.
What would be another example of something non-standard, we'll call it paranormal, that happened to you in that age of adolescence?
Well, then we would go up the street, and there were at the factory where my father worked. The man had goats because he was from Germany, and he only drank goat's milk. So we're going up to feed the goats. So as we're going up to feed the goats, there was a house on the right side of the street, and they had cut a tree down, but they didn't level the trunk down. It was sticking up probably 2 feet. And I looked at it and I said, Grandma, they need to cut that down. Somebody's going to hit their head and hurt themselves. And I don't know why I thought that. I'm a little kid. Why would I think that? And she didn't say anything. And a couple days later, we heard a car screeching up the hill at night and a big bang. And what had happened was the little boy across the street was crossing the road in the dark, and the car hit him, and he hit the trees. Yes. So I had a premonition there. I'm going, okay, why do I know all this stuff?
Were you worldly or wise enough, or had compared notes enough with other kids to know in some part of yourself that you shouldn't have known that, if you know what I mean?
I couldn't tell other kids because they didn't talk about things like this.
Right. When did you first have somebody to confide in about this part of your life and experiences?
Not till I was in high school when I met another girl. Then we started talking about all this stuff, and I said, "Oh, you see stuff too. You know stuff too. Okay."
Cheryl, you mentioned that your grandmother also also had these abilities.
Yeah.
When did either you ask her or she tell you, or how did you come to know that about her?
I said she would know things that were going to happen. She would go to the phone because she said it's going to ring, and it rang. And I would just, so it was just kind of a knowing that we both knew this stuff,
Yeah.
Never really talked about it. We just did it.
Yeah. It always interests me how people first got interested in the subject of truly anomalous, unidentified flying objects. Now, the more politically hip, accurate, up-to-date term, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. This came into your transom when you were 11 with a special issue of a popular publication that most people don't associate with UFOs. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I said my father worked at where am I here? I said my father worked at a factory, and guys would leave magazines around, and he was bringing some of them home, and it was Popular Mechanics. Now, that's not something an 11-year-old girl reads, but I was finding stuff in there kind of interesting because I said I was different. And at the back of the magazine, there were always articles about UFOs.
Had you ever thought about unidentified flying objects?
I didn't know what this was. We used to watch like the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits, things like that. And so then I'm reading this and I said, oh, this is real stuff.
Yeah.
And then the crazy thing was, not too long after that, my father came home from work one night, probably 7, 8 o'clock. It was dark now. And he never talked about these things. And he came in the house and he looked at me. He goes, a flying saucer just landed in the park across from the facility. And these little people came out and we were watching them. And then he went in the kitchen to have dinner. It was just like, just matter-of-factly, and then walked away.
Did you have a sense that this was something that he shared with your mom and your brothers and sisters, or
No, he just told me.
Mm.
And he never talked about it again. He just made that statement, and that was it.
So now you're in high school. We're all gently pushed, by the people that love us and our teachers to think about what we want to do, what we're going to be when we, the term is laughingly, grow up, which some of us are still waiting for.
Me too.
But by the time you were in your teenage years, did you have a thought on what you really might want to do as opposed to what you might have to do if, you didn't take the lead?
I always wanted to do something in the art field. Because I was just always interested in that. I was majoring in art in high school. I was also majoring in English, kind of back and forth. And when I was a senior, I was in a commercial art class, and my teacher took us up on a bus to Chicago, to the Chicago Art Institute.
Oh, boy.
That was so exciting.
It's one of the great museums in America, period.
Yeah. And some of the kids in the class were kind of bored. I thought it was just, beautiful. Look at this stuff. How can you guys not appreciate this? Yeah.
It's obviously a large institution, and like all great museums, there's no way to see everything on your first trip. You just simply melt down. I'm wondering, only because it came up this week in some other context, one of the most world famous paintings, and it's a big one, at the Institute is George Seurat's Sunday in the Park. He was the pointillist painter, who I know you're familiar with, who painted with dots rather than strokes.
Yes.
And it went on to great sort of popular culture acclaim years ago when it became the basis for a Broadway play. Do you remember seeing that painting by any chance?
Yes, I did.
So you're now graduating from high school.
Well, us before I graduate, we had a downtown art show.
Oh.
Now it was grown-ups, wasn't really kid stuff. And my father said, well, go put one of your pictures over there. It was in the parking structure up on the top. It's okay. So I did a lot of charcoal drawings. I was into the black and white, like Ansel Adams. And I did a charcoal drawing of like an old English town. And I put it in there, and I won a prize.
And what did you win?
Here I am, 17 years old, and with all these adults, I won a prize.
That's great, an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Well, I got a ribbon, and then I got a $20 gift certificate, which at the time, that was a lot of money,
You bet.
But it's just that I have the ribbon. That was exciting.
What were you going to do with that massive amount of money?
I don't even remember what I did. that ribbon is more important to me than the money was.
At a certain point, you really developed a deeper feeling for the art of photography. Do you remember Ansel Adams? I know is a photographer who's had a huge impact, as he has on many of us, whether or not we're into photography or not. There's no nature photographer quite like him. When did you get your first camera?
I was in 8th grade, and on the back of the Kellogg's Cornflakes box, they had a contest.
Another contest.
So you had to draw or paint a picture of Old Faithful. They had a picture there, and then was a big empty square, and that's where you were supposed to put your artwork, and you send it in. I said, okay. So I was all excited because first prize was $5 a week allowance for a year.
Whoa.
At that time, that was a lot of money.
Yes.
Well, I didn't win first prize. I got second prize, which was a camera. Okay.
So, man, you're winning all over the place at this point in your life. When you graduated from high school, were your parents able to help you go on to further education? If so, what did you move into?
I just went to a local college because I wanted to go up to Chicago to go to school, but we couldn't, you know how expensive that was.
Yeah.
University of Chicago, that'd be too expensive. So I just stayed local.
And what was your major?
Computer science.
Very practical and looking toward the future, possibly on another planet.
Yeah.
Very advanced way to go. Do you remember your first computer?
Yes. And one of my classes was communication classes. And so then I was getting back into the writing part.
Was on the timeline of, digital culture, so to say, were we already into the creation of the internet and email at this point?
No.
Do you, I'm remembering my first computer, which when I first started writing my first book, I started to do it on a state-of-the-art IBM Selectric typewriter, which I was very proud of. And a friend who was taking pity on me, thinking he's not going to write a whole book on a typewriter, had just traded up to, some monster desktop with, a real screen, as big back as an old-fashioned television. And he gave me the company that made them, some of you are familiar with it, was Brother. And it was like about the size of a large portable typewriter. It was black plastic, and you opened it up, and it had an LED readout screen that was exactly half size and no color or anything, obviously floppy disks and things. I thought I was on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. I had entered, the 23rd century or something as far as I was concerned, and then regularly pushed the wrong button, and everything I'd been working on disappeared.
Oh, no.
Freak out, call my friend, and he'd give me these long series of numbers and letters with backslashes and dashes, and somehow we always managed to recover it. He's gone now, but I remember him with great affection and thanks. Did you pretty much master this technology? You were studying it as a major, and go on with confidence, or it was something that was a bit intimidating?
I learned a lot of computer languages. And some of them are probably obsolete now, but you had to get into the door, to get a job somewhere. And since I was in a small town, there wasn't really a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. Did you have time or the inclination to read for pleasure at this point in your life, or it was?
Oh, yes.
What kind of books drew your attention?
Mostly science fiction, things like that.
I think any of us that grew up fortunate enough to have as part of our, weekly cultural experience, sitting in front of our TVs watching The Outer Limits, and especially Twilight Zone in its early black and white incarnations, was very fortunate indeed. Rod Serling actually came from New York State, and after he came back from the war, he moved into a small town about 15 miles from where I am, and became associated with Ithaca College, where he taught for a certain time. And every year they still have a Rod Serling Twilight Zone festival. I think his wife Cheryl is now gone, but I think his daughter is still involved. And it's just wonderful. Part of it is showing absolutely pristine kinescope prints of these wonderful stories that so affected us when we were young.
And the the idea for him coming up with the Twilight Zone, when he came back, he had really bad PTSD.
Yes.
And that's how he came up with all these wild stories.
He had terrible PTSD. Yeah. He wasn't in the European theater of war. He was in the Pacific and involved in some horrific, brutal things that none of us can imagine if we weren't there.
Right.
And there were a few episodes, to go off on a tangent. I remember one where the protagonist is on, South Pacific Island, and he's Japanese fighting the Americans. But then there's the thing mutates, and it's really the characters sort of shift, and it's from the American point of view. He was brilliant, and again got a lot of our imaginations fired up. But at this point in your life, did you find that the abilities that you had come upon as a child were either just sort of not happening much or dormant, or they were alive and well and you were regularly having different kinds of premonitions and paranormal experiences?
I think they kind of slowed down when I was in college because I was so busy studying.
Yeah.
But then after that, they were back again. Everything was in full force.
Can you give us an example or two of things that happened to you or that you experienced or went through in this realm of experiences after college?
Well, I was always knowing things were going to happen before they happened. And sometimes that was good. Sometimes it was scary.
Yeah.
And one time I'm walking past the factory by our house, and I saw a little girl on the other side of this big fence. And I know I could see through her. I knew she wasn't real again.
Yeah.
And I saw they had 2 swings in the yard. And she goes, come in my yard. We have 2 swings. Come play with me. Uh-huh. And probably a little while after that, I found an old cemetery by my house. And I actually found her grave.
And you are sure as you can be that it was her grave?
Well, because there was the mansion where the person that owned the factory. Yes. I did researching on Ancestry, and I checked out, when she died and all this, got her name. And then I went back and I said, yes, that's the little girl I saw.
So this would have happened in your early 20s, maybe?
Yeah.
Cheryl, like so many really intriguing guests I've been had the privilege of having on, my memories activate, and you want to compare notes and things. Understanding in life sometimes can be the booby prize. It doesn't change things on a certain level. One either accepts, rejects, or struggles with the experiences that you're having, that you're sure that you're having. Every once in a while, it can be some kind of organic disturbance. I'm remembering that very affecting film, I think, phenomenon 15, 20 years ago with John Travolta, where he has these extraordinary abilities, and it turns out he has a brain tumor. And it's been messing with all the wiring in his mind, and it's a very poignant film and a very fine performance from Travolta. Obviously, you didn't have, physiological disease or something affecting this, but by the time you're in your early 20s, like Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense, are you able to just understand and accept that you see dead people?
Oh, yes. And it's good because I work on missing person cases, so I can help with that. Now, probably the only bad part is spirits like to tell me how they died. And I guess it's because maybe they had unfinished business, or they just wanted someone to know before they could move on. But they do tend to tell you how they died. Or I will also know if a person's going to die, a living person's going to die. And I don't like knowing that.
That's intense.
I don't like to know that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Can you give us one example of encountering a non-corporeal, a being disassociated from its former body who is still here, and how they came to tell you how they died, and how they came to tell you how they died and how that was for you.
Well, I've investigated at Waverly Hills in Louisville, Kentucky, and I had people coming up to me telling me how they died there, from TB. And they're not sad. They're in a happy place now. I don't know why they won't move on, but they're in a happy place. It's not like that's a terrible place.
There's so many theories and so many beliefs surrounding beings who are still here in part in the afterlife. I think a lot of it, people who are sensitives, so to say, like yourself, you either go with a theory or an idea or a philosophy that you're comfortable with, that you can tolerate, or you develop an absolute belief based on either what you've been told or what you've come to feel about it. Do you have also, like UFO abductees, this is something that seems to run along bloodlines, like your grandmother. I've encountered quite a number of people in my life who allege to have these kind of experiences, and more often than not, a mother or father or grandparent also has these experiences, and at a certain point in life they come to know that. Did your mother and you ever talk about this directly?
Never. And I know that when you have abilities, it's hereditary. So it comes down. Now my great grandmother had it. My grandmother had it. So it did not skip my mother.
Can I ask?
She would never talk about it.
What do you know about your ancestry when your people came to America? Does your family go way back? And where are they from? I'm just curious now to see if it maybe fits some pattern.
Some ancestors came from Cornwall. So I'm part Cornish. And I have some native ancestry, which is what my great-grandmother was. So, and I heard her father was a medicine man at one time. So see, it comes along the family.
What Indian nation?
Chippewa.
You have a wonderful face and pronounced cheekbones. Sometimes we imagine we're seeing things in people's faces. I've only made one trip to Cornwall, England.
Oh, well, I've never been there.
And I've been to the UK more than 20 times. I went because I was invited to speak at a Fortean conference, and the largest Fortean study group in the UK is centered down there in Cornwall. And I remember, talking to people at the conference, other speakers, a relatively large and healthy Wiccan community down there, and being taken by several of my new Wiccan friends to a Wiccan museum on the coast.
Oh, wow.
Which was quite an experience. But, your pedigree, in a sense, fits the experiences that you're talking about. There is something in the realm of exploring some aspects of the unknown that it's a real thing. It's a real discipline. It's something that, in fact, is employed by successful business people, intelligence communities, military, academics, and it's called remote viewing. I know this is something familiar to you.
Yes.
But I'm going to ask you now how you first heard about remote viewing.
Well, first of all, I've been doing this all my life, and I didn't know it had a name. Maybe
Yep.
it didn't have a name back there.
Probably not.
Yeah, and so I just would do it. Like I said, I would know places. I could dream about something, and then I go there, and it's everything is where it was. So obviously, I had remote viewed there. Probably about 6 years ago, I was asked to join a team of psychics and mediums, and called Project Psi, and we work on missing person cases. And one of the ways that we do this is we remote view to where the person was last seen and try to find them.
Yeah. With some success?
Lots of success. We brought home 444 children so far.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I know when I first heard about remote viewing, I'm a very nuts and bolts person living, in a world with a lot of friends, colleagues, people that I meet, the work that I do, who are vibrating on a higher frequency than I am. And for years, as you know, I worked for Bud Hopkins, the pioneer UFO abduction investigator, in a scientific way. And once Bud became well known, he would often be sent books by people, either as gifts or I hope that, you'll read this book and, maybe, or, this manuscript and think of giving me a blurb I can use on the back or something. Mm-hmm. And one day I came to the studio. I got there before him, and I went over his desk and I saw a book sitting there, and I was immediately drawn to the cover. I have a background in design and illustration, as well as in painting and art history and film history. And there was a collage on the cover that almost made my jaw drop.
Oh, wow.
And a huge title of the book called Penetration. And under it, the name of the author, which struck me as, well, this is as goofy as the cover, Ingo Swann.
I know Ingo Swann.
And a few minutes later, Bud came down and we started just chatting before we got to work. And I pointed almost laughingly about the book, and somebody sent you some crazy book or something. And he got very serious. And he said, have you ever heard about remote viewing? I said, I've heard the term, but, I'm busy with other stuff. He said, first of all, this book is really important and it's very serious. And Ingo is one of the most respected practitioners in the world of this subject, has worked with the CIA, et cetera. And he doesn't live that far from here in Manhattan, but take it seriously. And I borrowed the book and took it home. And it was somewhat life-changing for me. I'm going to do something here I don't usually do, which is take a little bit of a guest time and tell one brief story. I don't have a life filled with paranormal experiences. I've spent a good part of my life documenting other people's UFO experiences, but I have had a few. And one, I've never told this story in any public forum and certainly on any broadcast, but this is a very good one to do it. This was in an earlier incarnation for me in this body, but a younger one. I was in probably my mid-late 20s, the Soho district of Manhattan, which at the time was about 10 square blocks of mostly abandoned warehouses and old factories, united in a way by being the largest still standing concentration of what we call cast iron architecture, possibly in the world, certainly in America. I don't even know if it took form in other places. It came out of Civil War technology where you could order the facade of your building if you're a contractor from a factory, and it was panels of cast iron that would bolt together and be very striking. Because they were cast panels, you could have much larger windows than, a brick structure. And that wasn't intentional for somebody to enjoy more light to, play around. It was to give factories the opportunity to push their workers harder because they had more light, so they can, actually have them working later. And most of them were Roman and Greek neo facades. They also had the amazing advantage of being fireproof, which was a great boon, except that they found when fires started to happen, because the buildings were going up as early as the late 1860s, cast iron, if it's heated to a certain temperature, it explodes.
Oh.
And essentially it's like a giant hand grenade. When New York City developed fire laws and regulations, the first city in the world to do it, in great part because of a terrible, tragic fire, the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, these buildings were among the first in New York to get sprinkler systems, and many of them are still standing. The reason I bring it up is because I was a young idealistic artist. I was living that life of following my dream and being a painter. And like a lot of my colleagues and fellow artists, our day jobs were in construction, turning one of these buildings over after another into galleries, lofts, and shops, and creating this new, very trendy district. And it was essentially contracting. I did a lot of framing and wallboard work. I really liked it because I was able to think of myself as blue collar, but also an intellectual who is well read and, go to the bar at night and talk about art with my fellow artists and things. And at that time, there were two bars in all of Soho. A new one that went in 1971, and one that had been there since probably 1910, called Finelli's, which was a dive. It predated the Finelli sign, and that space went back to the Civil War. And there were actually panels that could be moved, and they hid slaves there on the Underground Railroad. Wonderfully historic area. I had finished a day's work, and I lived in Chinatown, and I thought, I'd get a beer before I head back to my loft. And for anybody that knows New York City, if you don't, you can visualize. I'm walking west on Grand Street, and I'm a few blocks from Ken and John's Broome Street Bar. And I see several blocks away a large black limousine pull away from the front of the bar. I get there 3 minutes later, and I walk in, and the place is absolutely buzzing. Everybody around me is like electric excited. Why? Mick Jagger just had a drink there and had just left. I mean, again, we're talking mid-70s, Mick's, come on, give me a break. Nobody gets more famous than Mick Jagger. And the place was pretty packed, the bar and little cafe tables, and a lot of window space, a lot of plate glass. And I sat at a table that was open, like 2 tables in from the front door, next to the glassed-in window. And at the time, I had a friend, Jimmy, who was bartender, tough Irish kid, very nice guy, but you didn't mess with him. And there was a guy at the bar who was really inebriated and was just starting to talk too loud and be disruptive. And I saw Jimmy lean over to him and say something nice, smiling. The guy simply didn't get it, hear it, or he was just too drunk. And Jim came out and started to talk with him. And all of a sudden, my mind went into this kind of reverie. And I imagined a scene, which was that things really got out of hand, and the bartender had to literally escort him out of the bar and push him out, a glass-fronted door, and that within a moment or two, he came kind of weaving around and stood right in front of me at that plate glass window, looked in, went back to the door, backed all the way up, and ran at the door.
Oh, wow.
And smashed through the glass door. And of course, that sound of smashing glass and a man who was now bleeding coming through, he hit the first table and it went over. And everybody kind of freaked out. And the first table went into the second table and it started to get wobbly. I'm at the third table, and the guy sitting with his back to me hits the table. I lift my beer before, it falls, and put it back down. And then I kind of come back to the real world. Like, what the hell was that about? And I'm drinking my beer. 1 or 2 minutes pass. And the guy at the bar is just getting more and more disruptive. And now it's not funny. And I see Jimmy come out from behind the bar and begin to escort him forcefully out the door, which he does. And I think, wait a minute.
I've seen this.
I'm not that comfortable with what seems to be starting here. And the man walks around to the side and, like, kind of weaving, sort of leers at me through the window, and then head back to the front door. And I even retelling it right now, I'm remembering the physical anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
And I watch him back up, facing that direction. And I think, oh no. And then I don't have time to warn people. He just runs at the door and he smashes through the glass. And for me, everything is kind of going in slow motion now.
Yeah.
It's not like I imagined. It's exactly what I had seen. And he comes in, hits the first table. It goes over. There's some yelling. First table hits the second table. And as the man at the second table comes back and hits the edge of my table, a sense of calm completely sweeps over me, as if to say, oh, I know what happens now. I stand up and lift my beer so it doesn't go off the table. And of course, that whole room erupts into, there's smashed glass, there's a bloody guy, tables are down. Everybody's very upset, except for me. I'm fine. In fact, almost beatific. And I finish my beer and leave. I know that is what's called precognition, but almost at a cartoon level. And it was decades ago. And I wonder about it regularly. What the hell governs that? What is the dynamic? I don't think it's 1,000 monkeys at 1,000 typewriters typing for 1,000 years and somebody produces a script for Hamlet. I don't think it's that randomness in the universe. There was something going on there. And I still don't know what to make of it, except that I know it happened. And there must be a law governing it that some people tap into, either regularly or by accident, in a way, for whatever reason. Your thoughts on what happened to me?
Yeah, because that happens to me a lot. And I go, people say, well, how come you know this? And how do you remote view? And I don't know. It just happens. But yeah, it's just crazy when I know something's going to happen and I see the whole thing and then it happens. And I go, and again, like you, I go, yeah, I knew it was going to happen that way. Why did I need to know that? It's not like I could have stopped it.
Yeah. Cheryl, you said you've had the experience of at times knowing that somebody was going to die.
Yeah.
Can you give us a memorable example of that and how you handled it?
Well, I told you I would get a feeling that somebody's going to die, but at first I didn't know what that was. It would come. I'd be standing by a person. I would just get like a dark feeling for some reason, and I didn't know what that meant. So it took me a couple times before I realized that was warning me somebody's going to die. So I was working in retail at the time, and there was this little Italian man that he wore a beanie all the time, and he kind of bent over, and he would come over and talk to me every time he was in the store. And his wife was in a nursing home, and he would go visit her. He'd pick something up for her and go visit her. So one time I saw him standing up by the register, and I go running up there to say hi to him. And I almost get to him, and something pushed me back like that. And I looked, and I go, did I trip on something? No. And I didn't know what happened. And then he talked to me. He goes, I'm going to go visit my wife now. So it's like 6:00 at night. So I didn't know what the heck that was. Next day, we hear that he went to visit his wife. He went across the street to the restaurant. And about 6:00, he was crossing the street to go back, and he got hit by the car. I felt the impact of him being hit by the car. I was very disturbed with that. If I would have known what was going on, maybe I could have warned him, be careful when you cross the street. But It didn't show me enough to know that he was getting hit by a car.
Yeah.
Why did I only see that much when I could have warned him and maybe stopped it?
A lot more questions than answers.
Yeah, it's like we're not supposed to change things. We're supposed to let things happen the way they do. I don't know.
In remote viewing, again, the name is quite self-explanatory. Some people just have that gift or ability, depending on your point of view. For some people, it may be just the opposite of a gift in their experience. But in the formal training with people like Ingo and the way that this has been developed, my understanding is that we all have that dormant ability, and that if we work on it, if we literally develop it, and again, if we train with somebody like my old friend Nancy Duterre, a psychic who was a guest on the show last year, a remarkable woman who is an instructor in remote viewing. One of the standard techniques is you are given an envelope, and in the envelope is a piece of paper. And on the piece of paper is whatever's on that piece of paper. And you spend time with that envelope. And at a certain point, if you have this skill developed or you're a natural at it, you draw something. And then you open up and see how close it is. In some cases, it's jaw-dropping, shatteringly close. And of course, the odds of there's something on that piece of paper. We're not talking about guessing here. There's a certain knowing that goes on. Mm-hmm. Is this something that you have done or actually trained in beyond your natural ability?
I haven't tried that. And like the way the government teaches remote viewing, they actually give the subject GPS coordinates.
That's right.
I cannot do that. I've had people give me GPS coordinates. You think I could find something? No. I said, well, I'm just going to stick with how it works for me.
Yeah.
I know that's how they train people, but maybe I'm just fighting it and I don't want to do it that way. I don't know. Or when I do see where somebody is, our leader will say, well, what's the GPS coordinates? I go, I don't know. I don't work with coordinates.
When you and the group that you've worked with are looking for a missing child, what techniques, how do you go about that? Is it simply a matter of, going into a relaxed state and closing your eyes and trying to visualize it? Or is there something beyond it? Or do you work directly with another person or persons in trying to access a location or
the most
state?
Important thing that you have to remember is when a child's missing, you only have 48 hours. To find them alive. You need to go fast. Yeah. And there's a team of us. We live in different states. I think I've only met two of them. We don't all get together, but we do. He shows us a picture of the child, and he will give us the GPS coordinates of where they were last seen. So you can pull that up. And what I do is I'll look at the picture of the child, and then I can start to see things that are around him. I can see the surroundings. I can see buildings and street signs and things like that. And then we all call in and give him what we see, and he puts all the information together and notifies the police.
Wow. And obviously, you're working with departments who are pretty receptive to this, because they have to be, because they're desperate, because they're more aware of anybody than the time coordinates and the little time they have.
Some police are not interested in what we do because they don't believe in psychics. So sometimes we're trying to give them information and they don't take it.
I I feel torn because I can understand, these are, overall good people doing a hard job.
Yeah.
Who live in a very pragmatic nuts and bolts world, and we don't need to waste time on, some quote unquote psychic. But meanwhile, here on Earth, we do not consider it a waste of time. We consider it a privilege. And we are about to go missing 3 minutes of our time on a brief break. Please stay with us. This is Peter Robbins with my special guest, Cheryl Lynn Carter, and we will be back in about 3 minutes. Stay with us.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button, so just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Discover the Observation Deck, a one-of-a-kind virtual event platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus. There's so many areas and activities to choose from. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, an expo hall, a nightclub, and even a beach. So come attend a conference, take a class, or hear a lecture on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Go to theobservationdk.com.
And welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth with your host, who is me, Peter Robbins, and my guest, who is just to my right. Yeah, being dyslexic, I have to think about things like that. On your screen or in your ear, Cheryl Lynn Carter. Welcome back, Cheryl.
I'm ready to go.
I hope you had a lovely break.
Yes.
Among other things, you are a published author, and it was the fact, obviously, that you and I are involved in UFO studies that kind of brought us together, but also our love of photography, and we're going to get into that shortly. But quickly here, let's take a look at you and Ryan Skinner have written 2 books on the fabulously strange, creepy, and now very well-known Skinwalker Ranch, and this book, Dimensions, which I found doubly interesting because I have actually traveled in the Bermuda Triangle when I was younger. And of course, there are locations all over the world, triangulations, where a lot of strange shit happens. And a lot of it is completely mysterious. How did you begin your this part of your writing career, and where did it start? What your first published book was, the Dimensions book, or you began with Skinwalker?
No, my first book that you saw in the pile of books there, it was Mysteries Beyond the Grave, Whispers Beyond the Grave.
Right, that's the one. I didn't have the
that's the one. It's kind of like an autobiography. I talk about, when I was a child, and the little boy at my aunt's farm, and it kind of progressed, and then I would have different investigations that I went on.
Let's start with that one. Did you begin with the spirit of wanting to educate and inform others, or to kind of divest yourself? I need to get some of this stuff out of me, so to say, and draw a little bit of, reinforcement from the fact that people may read it and say, yeah, that's happened to me too, or I didn't know such a thing was possible. You remember kind of what was governing your thinking in beginning to work?
There's a little store down the street from me, and they were teaching Reiki. And so I started taking, the Reiki classes, and I started telling people about my experiences. And they would say, oh, you should write a book. And I said, oh, who'd want to hear my stories? No, you should write a book, So we kept doing. I went through the 3 levels of Reiki, became a Reiki master. And the whole time they're going, you should write a book. So I did. And I did. And when I wrote about my experiences, I had read other paranormal books, but usually it was by men. And they would be very technical, saying about, which equipment they used and all that. Well, if you've never used the equipment, you don't know what this means. So I wanted to make sure that if I talked about a piece of equipment, I explained how it worked, what it does. And I wanted you to feel like you were there on the investigation with me.
Cool.
I wanted you to hear the sounds, smell the smells. I wanted you to feel not just, well, I went there and this happened. No, I wanted you to hear how I was breathing and all this.
Yeah. As you're speaking, I'm thinking, one thing about us guys, we like equipment,
I do too, but I've noticed that, other people don't, even men don't know what a certain piece of equipment does, and you need to explain it to them.
Well, why should I take the time to explain it to you? I know what I'm doing here, and that's all that matters, even if I don't understand what's going on. What a great approach. Did you include any experiences that other people had shared with you, or this book is all about your experiences?
That's all about my experiences, yes.
Let's talk about one or two that even for you were, whoa, that's almost off the charts. That is about as intense or memorable or poignant or affecting in terms of that bleed through between this world and the next. Can you give us an example or two of that?
I think everybody's probably heard some story about a haunted place with a lady in white. And so I was just looking on the internet one day, and there's a cemetery probably an hour from me, and they talked about a lady in white walking across the road from the cemetery, and she'd walk in front of cars, and they drive off the road thinking it was a person there. Okay, and I didn't believe that was true. I said, there's something else. So I drove over there one day, and I says, okay, I'm going to go see what's going on. So I drove down there, and there's a really old cemetery there. It was an old pioneer cemetery. Those are the best. And I noticed it was on a curve. And across the street, there was a trailer park. I saw, see, somebody's just walking back and forth. So I went around the curve, and it's all trees around there. And when you come back, you're coming through the trees, and all of a sudden, there's this trailer park. And I said, yeah, see, they're not seeing somebody when they're coming through real fast. Yeah. That's all it is. But I went in a cemetery anyway. And the bottom half was like newer grays, but you go way up top of the hill, and it was really old graves up there.
Hmm.
And so I'm climbing up the top of the hill, and I think I fell down a few times because, I don't know how they ever got people up there to bury them. It is a hill. And I got up there. I said, oh, the spirit's probably laughing at me for falling down the hill now. So I'm walking around, and I said, okay, lady in white, are you here? Anybody around? And I saw a couple, a guy and a woman, and he was wearing an army uniform, and they stepped out from behind the tree, and they're watching me. And I said, okay. And I said, well, where's my lady in white? And I looked up, and up on the other end of the hill, there's a tall pillar monument, and there she was. She was standing there. I go, oh my gosh, she's real. And I says, who are you? And something made me look at this grave on the ground. There was an old marker there, and it was broken in two. And I said, okay, Sarah. Her name's Sarah. Was your name Sarah? And then she was gone. And I said, okay. So I went home, went to Ancestry again, and I'm checking out who's Sarah, because I didn't see any other family members there, just Sarah.
Mm.
So I found out that she was married, and her husband went to the Civil War, and a month later she died. And I go, how sad. So I went back. I must have gone back 4 times trying to talk to her. And I kept saying, you don't need to stay here. And she says, no. She goes, he went away to the war. He promised he would come back to me, and I promised I would wait. So I'm waiting for him. It was 176 years later. Still waiting for him to come back from the Civil War.
Cheryl.
I saw how she was real sick. She went to bed one night, and she never woke up. She didn't know she was dead.
That is a showstopper right there. When you encounter these otherworldly beings, do you know, or do they establish in some way whether, like I think any good, well-behaved ghost should be, that they know that they are dead? Is this a unique experience for you with this woman? And if so, how did you know that she didn't know?
Most spirits know they died, but there are some who don't. And she really didn't, because she was still waiting for him to come back. So obviously she knew she was still alive.
When you have exchanges like this, are they audible, or is this telepathic?
I think it's telepathic. I did get her voice on the recording a few times, just saying, help me, help me.
Oh my.
And it was so sad. And I said, and I said, it was making me mad. I said, if other people are seeing her, why aren't they helping her? So I said I had to go 4 times. I said, okay, I can't leave her there. I just can't. So I went back there, and I said, Sarah, you really can't come here. I go, you need to go where Matthew is. And she says, I'm waiting for him to come. I said, well, he's not coming back. I says, because I found out after the war, he moved to California with his sister. So that's why I didn't see his grave there. And she says, no, I'm waiting. I says, he's not coming back. I said, yes, he is. I says, no, he's not coming back. And I didn't mean to say it this way. I said, he's not coming back because he's dead, and so are you. And I go, oh, no, you didn't do this. You did. One thing you don't do is want to tell a spirit that they're not dead. And she goes, oh, no. And I said, it's okay. I said, but I know where he is. I says, and I can show you where he is. So you hear people say, oh, I'm going to send somebody to the light. Well, if you told me to go toward a light, I'd run the other way. That's scary. You wouldn't tell somebody that. So I said, well, you see that beautiful bridge over there and all the sunshine on the other side? I said, if you go across that bridge, Matthew is on the other side there. He's waiting for you. And she's kind of hesitated. So I called to him, and I didn't know if it would work. And I said, can you come meet her on the bridge? And he was on the other side of the bridge. young again, wearing his Civil War uniform, and she saw him, and she ran across the bridge to him.
Good God.
I'll never forget that.
And you watch this, nobody else around, I'm imagining.
No.
And I mean, were they translucent? Could you see through them or light through them? Or were they?
Yes,
okay.
They were spirits, yes.
Cheryl, have you ever shared anything like this, or the kind of things that we're talking about, either to an individual or in a forum, and somebody's reaction is, "Lady, you're nuts," or you're a liar?
I share this story on interviews a lot, and there are people in the chat saying I'm nuts. Yes. Because I remember one remark I would say, it was just like Gone with the Wind. That's what reminded me of. And then somebody had a rather rude comment about my mind is gone with the wind or something.
I'm impressed that besides being able to do what you're alleging here, you have become a good investigator and researcher, and you apply those skills the same way that you and I would if it was a UFO event, to get as much supportive information as you can. Again, obviously, we're talking apples and oranges here, but the fact that you did your research based on who was buried where, on who these people were, and publicly available records. Have you ever discovered anything that really caught you off guard in researching, either in a situation like this, an individual who was peripherally involved with the deceased or is the deceased, where you found out something that, again, completely caught you off guard?
Oh, there's just been so many things. That I was investigating at a place one time, and usually before I go somewhere, spirits start talking to me 2 or 3 days before, like they know I'm coming for some reason. And I saw a big fire, all this fire, and this woman's looking for her little girl. There's fire all around them. And I said, what the heck? And it was actually a theater. And we went there, and I says, when did you have the fire? Well, there's never been a fire here. And I said, I'm pretty sure there was a fire here. No, I don't think so. So we're investigating all night, and we were down by the auditorium, and all of a sudden I saw fire all around me. And there was the woman looking for her little girl. Now, I don't know if it was a snippet in time, if it was really still happening.
Sure.
And they still, I told them about it, and they kept saying, there was never a fire here. Well, I went back and I researched, and I found out, in the old days, the town, everything was made of wood. The boardwalk was all wood.
Sure.
And there was a big fire there, and the whole town burned down. And there was actually an apartment building where this woman was. And then now it's the theater. See, I was very shocked to find that the people that owned it didn't know their history. And when I tried to tell them what I found out, they didn't want to know. They didn't want to use that on their tour to let their guests know. And I don't know why.
Well, I think there are some people, especially if it's in some way peripheral to a business situation, who want to steer away from anything, generically speaking, that they consider unpleasant. Where for a lot of us, truth is beauty. And sometimes it is a frightening thing to behold. One can even argue that we've all had that feeling or seen pictures, especially in this day and age where fires are sometimes terrifyingly large, ongoing things that, but seeing a photograph, again, with an aesthetic sensibility, that mixture of orange, gray, things standing, of reactions, that makes what we would call as photographers, a wonderfully balanced composition, which is almost chilling to be that analytical about a life and death situation for someone else.
And again, they don't have to talk about the woman, but I just think the history of the town burned down would be something interesting to talk about. You didn't have to talk about her. You know.
Even for some people, I don't want to talk about the town burning down. We have
Yeah.
children here, and kind of I'm imagining Disney sensibility people on, vacation or what have you. And then there's that, I don't know, that push that some people have to protect other people from anything that makes them anxious, which, one can argue in both directions about that. After that book was published and out there, did you have readers who got in contact with you and said, I have had something like this happen, or I lost somebody, and the person that you described on the other side was almost exactly in their situation, or response from readers in something like this is very different than response from readers on quite a number of other subjects?
Oh, yes. I've had people say, oh, yes, I have somebody to talk to now, because I didn't want to talk about this stuff. Again, somebody might think I'm crazy. And almost everybody that read it said, I felt like I was there with you. So that was my intent when I wrote it. I wanted you to feel that you were with me, and it came across that way. So that was good.
Cheryl, over the years that you've experienced this, and again, we're going back to your early life, and become what we'll call a professional in it. I mean, you are. Once you write a book and you sell one copy of that book and receive $1 for it, you are a professional. First of all, by temperament and empathy, you're the right kind of person for this. This is not the kind of work that you do if you're dispassionate or think of a case and the individual involved, like an insect pinned to a board that you're studying with a magnifying glass. This involves human lives and that whole sweep of emotion. Do you think, or have you come to a point in your thinking or reflecting where you see some guiding principle, some physical or ethereal laws of the universe that govern this whole area of experience and study? Or are you still kind of, I don't understand this, I know it's real, it's happening to me, I don't know any more than I knew when I started? Have you been able to formalize it or come to some theories, or read work by respected people in the paranormal scholarly world, people like, say, an Edgar Cayce, where you've identified a philosophy that works for you in trying to wrap your head around this aspect of your life?
I think that the more I learn, the more I don't know. And that's good, because you'll hear somebody go, okay, I saw this happen, I know it all now. No, we don't know. And don't stop right there thinking that you've known everything, because there's so much more to learn. Each experience brings you more questions, more that you need to find out. And I don't know why I'm able to do the things I do, but there's a reason for this. It's like a calling.
Yes.
I call it a gift, because there's a reason that I have to do this. There's a reason that the spirits need to talk to someone, and I can hear them, and they know I can hear them. That's special, because how many times are people investigating and the spirits are yelling at them and they're not hearing them?
Yeah.
They're not hearing them at all. So there's just a reason that there are people like me that are able to interact with the spirits.
I appreciate your answer more than you might imagine. I think one has to overcome a certain amount of ego and that feeling of, I've got to justify this with something. I've got to either come up with some set of rules that I think are going on here, or a governing philosophy, because I'm basically hanging in the dark here. And, I'm working without a net. And I think to say that the more that you learn, the less you know on a certain level, is not a bad place to be. There's a wonderful definition of what we call a Zen beginner, which is knowing that you know nothing and having it be okay.
Yes.
You and I know more than nothing, for example, about the subject of UFOs. And after all the decades I've been involved in it, the main thing that I am most assured of, that I am most comfortable discussing around, that I'm most confident in, is how little I actually know that I could prove in a court of law,
Right.
that I could bring before a committee of academics and prove. For most people, well, for a lot of people that have the experiences or in the work, they could care less about that stuff. It's about consciousness. It's about spirit. It's about love. It's about connection. I hit a point some years ago, remembering when I first became obsessed with this subject. And I guess like a lot of folks, when they start, who are they? Where do they come from?
Mm-hmm.
What do they really look like? What powers these machines? And if they're interdimensional, where are they actually? Are they sitting in this room right now, one seat away, enjoying this conversation? But in the seventh dimension, and there's no way I can access them, but they know I'm here. Why are they so interested in the earth? Does their presence here predate mine? What do they have for breakfast? All that stuff. Where, thinking back to the people who mentored me when I started in this in my late 20s, who are gone now, and who didn't get the answers to their questions, here it is, before they moved on to whatever comes next. How did I feel about that possibility for myself? That at a certain point I will wake up and find out, I died last night. Very interesting. Well, hope everything's in order and people don't mourn too much, because it looks like something very interesting is about to start for me. I wonder, in that spirit, how boring life would be without mysteries. For a lot of us, the world of mysteries is something that we're introduced to early on, because we grow up in a family of faith, and there are all kinds of beliefs and things to accept, and miracles to either embrace or struggle with. And I realize I'm fine with it. Martin Luther King, I forget the quote, but it was, it's not about getting to the destination, it's about the journey.
Exactly.
And living an interesting, contributing life and being of goodwill, trying to leave your corner of the world a little bit better than you found it, that's not bad stuff. If you get some answers, great. If not, and if you're somebody like Cheryl Lynn Carter, who is a facilitator, who is there to assist, who is there to try to learn more, to be of as open-minded as you can to what you don't understand, and again, have it be okay. That you don't have to know how you do what you do to, sleep well at night, or, and that's not a bad place to be. Going back to another shared interest, we've established that at 11, your dad brings home this issue of Popular Mechanics, which all of a sudden, the flying saucers translate from science fiction to science fact, or that's the allegation. And you and your father never really discussed the subject again, even years later, or does it come up again?
No, he never. Like I said, I don't know where that came from that night. He just blurted it out, and that was it.
I guess it came from...
And I was a kid, so I really didn't know how to get into the conversation, I guess.
He wasn't saying there was a light in the night sky. He was saying a craft had landed near the factory.
And little people came out. Yes.
What a wonderous moment.
Yeah.
and good for him for sharing it with you. And interesting that he shared it with you, and maybe he intuited or understand or knew that your brothers and sisters or your mom were, this is not going to either be a value.
They just go, yeah. You worked all day, you're tired.
Out of curiosity, any of your siblings have this gift or talk to you about it or have these kind of experiences, or it's just, my oldest sister, Cheryl, she's amazing and she's written these books and she has these things happen to her. But, I'm wondering what's on TV tonight.
My one sister, the second sister, I think she has abilities. She keeps saying she doesn't, but I think she does.
Anyway,
So I've been with her investigating, and she sees things, and I go, "Cool." She saw some, she saw something.
That's a wonderful thing to be able to share.
Yeah, I mean, she's not getting into it in depth because I don't think she wants to embrace the whole subject, but I know she can see things.
At a certain point in your life, though, your interest returns to the subject that your dad has introduced you to at 11 enough so that you end up joining the largest UFO research organization in the world and become an involved member. Again, that's how we first connected, through your membership in MUFON and my speaking to MUFON groups and things. And do you then take the investigators training or look toward becoming an official in the organization? Or
I'm not a field investigator because I don't know that I want to go to strange people's houses and talk to him, because you might get some wacko out there. It's okay for guys to do that, but I don't know that a woman, like we've only got one female investigator in our group. The rest are men, so it's kind of. I would love to take the course just to say I'm an investigator, But it's great. I like going to the meetings because we have a speaker every month, and then we can just all sit there and swap stories, because we all have stories. We all see things all the time, and we swap stories.
Yeah,
and it's really great there because no one's going to laugh at you. No one's going to think something's wrong with you. They go, "Oh, that's great. And you know what happened to me? And hey, you should talk to him. Something happened to him." And we have the greatest time at our meetings. But right now we're Zooming them because crazy world. But it was great when we were get together.
And it will be again.
Yeah. And we met, we had speakers one time, and they were speaking about CE5. And I thought that was so great. And so I asked if I could join their group. And so a couple times during the summer, we get together and we go to the same place and we do a sky watch. We'll have maybe 20 people, just a small group. Not like Dr. Greer, where he has hundreds and hundreds of people. And we form a circle, and we're in a soccer field, actually. Way at the end of town, we're in a soccer field. Middle of nowhere, so we know there's nothing around.
Yeah.
And strange things happen.
I think one thing we really haven't discussed is an interest in this subject. It sounds so far, like a real loner activity, but in fact, it is what you make it. And I think connecting with like-minded people in life, in any sense, people that you share interests with, in the world of guys, for a lot of men, it's some aspect of sports. That is where, so many guys have trouble expressing their emotions, where they can connect and show shared common knowledge. I think it's, generally speaking, easier for women who, generally speaking, are more in contact with their emotions and less reticent about sharing feelings, especially with other women, unless it's a quality, romantic relationship. But that social aspect of studying the paranormal or doing UFO work not only should not be downplayed. For me, one of the things I've missed most over the past 2+ years is attending events where I get to meet people who either, have read what I've done, seen me in documentaries, heard me speak at conferences, read things I've written, some of whom become acquaintances, then friendly acquaintances, then friends, and some of them, of course, who go on to become friends for life. We all miss the people that we're not seeing in this crazy period of time. But for people in the paranormal research world and in UFO studies, I think that's a lot of it. And I'm really excited to know that pretty soon I will be able to be getting back on the road. I'm waiting on one conference right now, but in May, for the first time in 6 years or so, I'm going to be returning to the United Kingdom to speak at a conference in the city of Hull. And so looking forward to it, not just because I really enjoy traveling in the United Kingdom, but because I'm lucky enough to have a lot of friends there and know that since I've been there, there are people that I don't know who I would like to know or would like to know me. And, that's one of the reasons we're here, to connect with other people.
I met you when you came to Michigan and we did the swamp gas.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And you have one of the greatest state directors of all time.
Yes.
And one of the nicest guys I've ever met on planet Earth, Bill Konkoletsky, who is also, I think, a true asset to the field of UFO studies. Bill has had experiences his whole life and has written several remarkably clear, honest, open books about his experiences. And one of the things that sets his accounts off for me has always been a ferocious objectivity. He, unlike many people who generally feel either they're good or they're bad, or my feelings have been all good or all bad. That's not usually the way life is. And for a lot of folks who have these experiences, some of them are really quite wonderful, or the after effects of what you learn or reflect on are of real value to you. Other times they're friggin' terrifying. And I think he represents that really, really well. And MUFON should always be proud of him for his fine work. But Michigan has one of the great speaker programs going back for years, in part because of Bill. But again, of course, there are a lot of state directors who are right up there with him in terms of making things happen every month. In your UFO-related work involvement, have you ever had a sighting yourself?
Yes, it was 6-7 years ago. I'm just driving down the street through town, and it's a clear blue sky, and I look up and I see the sky open up like it's a portal. The sky opened up, and this disc-shaped craft came out. I go, okay, does anybody else see this? And nobody's paying attention. So I pulled over and I'm watching it. It's just hovering there. It's just hovering there. And then I realized everything around me stopped. Nothing was moving. Traffic wasn't moving. Everything stopped. And I said, what's going on? What's going on? And then I don't know how long went by, and I saw the sky open up again, and the craft went back inside, and the sky just closed up, and then everything started moving again. And I realized, okay, it's been about 10, 15 minutes. Where did the time go? I don't know what happened.
Cheryl, what time of day is this? And would you say it was a cloudless sky?
Right. There were no clouds in the sky. About 2:00 in the afternoon. There was a lot of traffic out there. Why did no one else see this?
Were you in a business district where you were driving?
Yes. There should have been plenty of people to look up in the sky and see this. But everybody's already in such a hurry. I'm somebody that looks in the sky all the time.
Yeah. For what it's worth, one thing that I feel Bud Hopkins and a number of his close associates established in working with experiencers and abductees, and this is something that I do feel is governed by some real aspect of their ability to manipulate our thinking or affect what we think we're seeing or what we remember, screen memories, what have you, that there is such a thing as selective invisibility, that some people simply don't see what other people are seeing in the same context. And I remember Bud once describing to me returning from a speaking tour of Australia, spending time with a lovely couple, really grounded, good people, had experiences, but, regular folks. Nothing spun, witnesses, physiological stuff, a good case, where they were on a crowded beach and looked up and saw a fully articulated disc-shaped craft. And, in that kind of shock that one would have, looked around and realized nobody else was reacting to it. Nobody else was looking up at it. Anybody that was looking up for a moment or so didn't seem to see it. And this individual took several photographs of it, none of which registered on the camera film that they were using. As a photographer, have you ever encountered a situation either with yourself as a photographer or somebody else when you were faced with what you felt was, if not UFO related, truly anomalous phenomena? For example, when you were up on that hill, in that little cemetery with the woman in white, do you think if you had taken out a camera and photographed her, you would have gotten an image?
Probably, because other people said they have seen her. and when I saw the UFO that day, I didn't have a camera with me. I didn't have a camera phone at that time. You go, darn. Now, when we've done our CE5 events, we like to use the singing bowls, and that makes just a vibration, and I think that vibration attracts something. I don't know if it's necessarily aliens. It could be interdimensional. It's attracting something when we go there. Something comes out of those woods to join us. It doesn't come close, but something comes out. I have photos of balls of light that come out, and we're pretty far away from the woods, so I would say they're probably about the size of a basketball. They're pretty big size. And one time we're still doing the singing bowls, and two lights just turned on, like somebody turned flashlights on, and they started moving back and forth. And one of them starts swaying to the music. It starts stretching up and swaying to music. I have photos of those. I didn't think fast enough to start doing video, but I do have photos on my infrared camera.
Gosh.
And probably after 10 minutes, we're watching, and I'm trying to show people the circle. I go, look at the woods. Look what's happening. And they're looking up in the sky. Yeah, whatever. They're looking up in the sky. I said, no, whatever's happening is right there in front of the woods. So only two of us are watching this. No one else was even interested in it until I took the pictures, and then I posted them in our group on Facebook, and they go, oh, cool. I said, well, you were there. You could have seen it. And then another time I took a picture of one of the balls of light, and I thought that's all I was getting. And I put it on my computer, and I said, wait, there's something different about this one. And I blew it up, and it was, I swear, it looked like an alien baby. It was the craziest picture. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Was it that? Was it interdimensional? I don't know what it was.
Let's shift gears here a bit and talk Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay.
For any of our viewers or listeners who are not aware of it or just have heard the term, where is it, what is it, and what is it about this location that has captured, understandably, international attention and has been established as, a actual twilight zone on Earth, so to say?
It's in Utah. It's in the Uinta Basin, probably a few miles from Vernal, Utah, or let's say the closest city. And it's a lot of, now that's a picture of how it looks out there. It's a lot of different properties. It's not the only ranch out there. There's all other ranches around it, and they are surrounded on both sides with Indian reservation. That's one of the old homesteads that was on the ranch. There, when people used to live there, I went back, and in that book, I went back and I researched all the history. I wanted to know everybody that owned the ranch at one time. Which that made it more personable. I found all their names. I found photos of them, found out, little bits and pieces about them. It was very interesting. And it was like the last two previous owners also started seeing all this high strangeness. Now, I'm sure it didn't just start, but that was back before people were keeping records of things. But the last two owners, now we have the internet and all this.
Yeah.
And there would be cattle mutilations, strange crop circles, everything you can imagine. It's all right here in this little area.
And a certain type of being or beings, or a whole different world of,
there's according to the Navajos, there's a legend of the Skinwalker.
Yeah.
And it's, I researched that, and it's actually medicine man. When they're doing all their training to be a medicine man, they have to learn about the good and the evil. And they found, some of the medicine men found a way to change themselves into other animals, or have you imagine that you're seeing that, even though they're standing there, having you imagine you're seeing a wolf or a bear, something. I think it's they have you imagine whatever you're afraid of. That's why people see different things. Mm-hmm. And of course, a wolf is going to be scary. But there's just all kinds. And I actually remote viewed there because I wanted to know what I would see. And I see if different dimensions overlapping.
You're familiar with the term portal.
Yes.
Do you feel that this is an area where there are literal openings into another or other dimensions, and that these life forms, these beings, these creatures come and go through it, or they're simply there and have been there for, since before recording the phenomena on that piece of real estate was being done?
I think it's a little of both. I mean, I think there's things that come from the sky, because when I remote viewed, I saw portals opening in the sky, and I know they have reported seeing stuff like that. And I think some's interdimensional, and some things were always there. There's a lot of strange little lights you see, and those are elementals. Those are part of the land. Excuse me. Elementals they're not human. They're not animal. They've just always been there. You can find that all over the world.
Got it.
They take the form of lights. They're friendly. There's nothing scary about the elementals, but they've always been there.
I think we could probably devote a series of shows to nothing but Skinwalker Ranch. Mm-hmm. And being that we don't have that kind of time, I want to shift gears again right now and talk about Cheryl Lynn Carter, the photographer, but what I would call the art photographer. Works that I've seen of yours, it's not like somebody posting a snapshot. It is a well thought out composition, signed like a painting or drawing. When did you really make that transition from somebody that enjoys taking pictures to that level of photography and taking that pride in your work and showing it?
Well, when I go investigating places, I like to take pictures, and I would just notice certain things that I said, well, that would be an interesting shot. Like I saw a chair and there was a spider web, and I did a black and white photo of that, and I go, that is so cool. Look at that. There are so many, or a chair in a corner with all the shadows around it. There's just so many different things, and anywhere you go, if you're just looking at the right angle, It depends where you're standing, where you're going to get that right photo.
Yeah. For me, I think we are in a world where many people are, at least allegorically, sleepwalkers. They are, often terrific, decent, hardworking people with, noble goals, but they are that focused on what we'll laughingly call the real world, to miss things that for some are so everyday that they're dismissible without even considering them.
Right.
The difference here is between looking at something and really seeing it. And that's one of the things that makes photographers valuable in our culture. And I'd like to begin, and you sent me some wonderful examples of your work. Let's start with this.
That's Lake Michigan. And I was just fascinated watching how the waves were hitting on the rocks. Most people see the water just hitting the rocks. Okay, what? But it's beautiful. And look, the sand. Look at the texture of the sand.
See, almost everything I learned about photography, I learned studying painting in terms of composition, tone, texture, color, if it's color, grading, if it's black and white. And this is so pleasing to the eye. It's a universal moment of earth, water, and sky, all brought together in a simple, unassuming way that, I'm very happy looking at this for an extended period of time.
It's very peaceful. See how peaceful that is.
Well, also the play of light and shadow, which is one of the universals that joins painting and photography. And here is on great display. And once again, how waves kind of undercut themselves, as it's going out and coming in at the same time. And that piece of rock, is that part of a jetty? Those rocks look like, somebody worked them and put them in that place rather than that was how they were found in nature.
No, that's how they were found. It was all along the shoreline like that. Just look at the sand, how interesting and beautiful that is.
Yeah.
It's almost like the waves out in the lake.
Exactly. Very much so. Which reminds me, in art school, one of the things that was kind of a revelation to me was that if you could draw with some real accuracy after work and practice and study the human body, you were ready equipped to draw a landscape. Same thing here. If you could draw a landscape, you could apply those same principles and techniques to drawing a body. Also, because we have nothing here for scale. I mean, I think most of us have a sense, give or take, of the size. This photo, hypothetically, could have been taken right there, standing there with the camera pointed down, which I'm going to make an educated guess that it was. But by the same token, it could have been taken from a plane, several thousand feet up with a little bit of imagination. It could have been taken near Lake Michigan or in the Sahara Desert.
Right.
There's nothing to give it away. And you see center left, those wonderful vertical striations, which probably were wind created. But, if this is an area of, I'm looking in the very upper right now, and there's a hint of that little kind of darker gray triangle with a little bit of white under it, that may be the seashore.
Yes.
So my deductive reasoning says, 12 hours from now, this could be covered with water, or this is just outside of the tidal zone. But it's a simple thing that here we are going on about that you can see in different ways. Another variation on the same thing, but water's doing a whole lot of different stuff. Again,
It was very choppy that night. That's why I went over to look at it, and I said, wow, this is...
That brown, white, that very special green and green-white, all the touches of white. This is such a universal moment. I'm wondering if there's anybody, unless they've lived inland so far for their whole life that they've never been to the shore of a large lake or the ocean. Most of us have this in our memory bank.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, I'm again making the assumption that this is you standing there and that the camera is really only a matter of, yard from what we're looking at. But it could have been taken from 3,000 feet up over a certain, part of the world. And this is one where I did a bit of a double take. What are we looking at here? You're having a little fun here.
That's actually Fort Wayne, Detroit, but I mirrored the image.
Yeah.
So that it looks like that. I started experimenting with this a little bit.
It's wonderful because I think for many of us, your eye wants to create something understandable that we've seen before, or that you find a shape in it that makes sense to you. And here we are having transposed it.
And you see it go back. You see in the middle?
Yep.
It almost looks like a native there.
All right, I saw a little person there.
The fort was built where there used to be a Potawatomi village. I mean, it's just a coincidence, but
Definite vibe to it. Where are we?
That is the casemate at the fort. It's a beautiful place.
Awesome. Great
It's a
deep
Civil
space.
War fort.
Yeah. Go toward the light. Yeah. That vaulted ceiling. The different kinds of
This is
stonework.
where they had the cannons, and they would shoot through the little window in the back there.
Yeah.
There's the cannon.
Again, a great sense of composition. Yeah. And symbol of...
caught a bird in that one. I didn't mean to do it.
I was going to say, well done.
That was sheer accident.
I don't know. I think you paid that bird to be in that picture. And these great Rorschachs, wonderful, the mirror imaging. Is this natural coloring?
Yes.
It's great.
I got there just the right time of day.
It
was in the afternoon. It was also very dark around that area, so that's why. I guess because we got the good color there. Yes. This is up at Sanilac, where we have our petroglyphs. This is the trail around there. That's a prism ball that this is really hard to do because you get a reflection in there.
Yeah.
You got to stand in just the right place to get a good reflection.
It's great. Here we go. Cheryl, where can people go to see your work?
I have a website.
Please let us know what it is.
CherylLynnCarter.com.
Because as we're going, we are coming into our last minute. As I thank you for being such a wonderful guest, I want our viewers to know your books are available on Amazon, as well as,
and I have some here. If somebody wants a signed copy, I have copies here.
Great. So you can go to CherylLynnCarter.com. You have been listening to Meanwhile and watching Meanwhile Here on Earth. Peter Robbins, my guest, Cheryl Lynn Carter. Take care. Stand up for what you believe in. Be kind to each other. And we'll see you next week.